Welcome to Discovering with Dr. Deb. Our last season, we were discovering the Enneagram with Dr. Deb, and it was packed with a lot of information while also being a lot of fun to talk about and explore the Enneagram and why we do what we do. So go back and check out those episodes if you haven't seen them already. Here we are in season 2, and I'm going to be focusing on trauma and using EMDR therapy as a tool to help process trauma. My co-host for this season is psychologist Dr. Christie from Austin, Texas. She has traveled all over the world to provide EMDR in humanitarian efforts, and she has also trained clinicians and providers in EMDR therapy. So get ready, let's dive right in and talk about trauma. Hello and welcome. Today I'm super excited to invite my friend Dr. Alice Harrell. She is in Oregon, right? And we're zooming her in. So you'll be able to see her. We're going to kind of cut it back every now and then. I'm here too with Dr. Christie, and she is a psychologist from Austin, Texas. So we're going to talk with Missy a little today too. She has experienced EMDR herself for her own issues, problems, situations, traumas, whatever, from her life. And so she's just volunteered to join us today just to talk a little about, like, initially, did she have apprehensions about it? I mean, it could be intimidating, you know, to think, what am I going to expect? I know in other episodes we shared a little about myths about it and a little more about what can be expected, but Dr. Alice didn't have any of that. She just had to go on the word of the counselor. Yeah. And but we're excited for you to be here and to share with us really a little about your experience. So Dr. Christie has been doing this for years, decades.
Mm-hmm. Yes. 35.
35. And truly has done some EMDR yourself.
Oh, yeah.
Right. So it's kind of nice. But anyway, what would you like to kind of say as we introduce this and jump into Alice's experience?
Well, I'm just so excited to hear about your experience, right? And I actually think this is a whole lot of fun, getting to know you and getting to know your experience. But I was moved actually by what you were just talking about, which we will be talking about somewhere along the line, but in terms of how physicians in general are really needing the support of a therapist. And of course I have a bias for EMDR, but there you have it. That's all out.
I do too. We're in the same boat. Yeah.
So I would love to know what it was like for you, you know?
Well, maybe I could back up just a little bit and talk about kind of how I got to the, which was I had gone through training, and then I became a mother. My youngest had just turned 2, but I had really kind of just hit some terrible burnout. Horrible. It was second time in my career, maybe third time in my career that I had encountered or had to deal with burnout. And so just prior to meeting Deb, I had been working with a coach, and I finally just said, like, I think I need a counselor. Like, I think I need to talk about something. Something just doesn't feel right. And I had just resigned, sold my partnership in my emergency medicine practice, was stepping away from that, and I just didn't know what was ahead. And that's how I came to meet him. And so as I talked to her, she just listened, and then, I don't know, it wasn't right away, but she eventually mentioned, like, geez, that sounds traumatic. And I thought, that sounds dramatic.
Yeah.
That's not, like, anyway. And then she started planting the seed of why don't we try EMDR? I think you could really benefit from it. And after several months, man, I still laugh at this. But I remember when I met with her, I said, I just quit my job. I'm going to give myself a couple months. I'm really struggling with these things, and, like, let's just meet weekly, knock this out so I'm done with my counseling, my therapy in like 2 months.
she cute?
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
glad, because I'm still, I always want to be participating in counseling. I see the benefit of that. But so then she proposed EMDR. And finally, once I got to the point where I gained like some trust with her, I said, all right,
Important.
let's do it. And because of my trust, I felt like I could just kind of free fall into the process. But my initial impression was, this sounds bizarre.
Yeah.
And I have no idea how this could work.
Yeah.
That was my initial impression.
Yes. Not uncommon.
Because it's like, she explained the process, and I'm like, what does that even got to do with anything? It just sounds
Yeah. Which is exactly why I wanted to record this for the podcast, because I think that's the normal response, is like, how, and I'll be honest, before I was trained in EMDR, I, as a provider, as a clinician and a counselor, like, I kind of thought that too. It was like, how can that even work? Like, let's just talk through things. And but I quickly bought in.
She did.
Yeah.
It only one session, and
Yeah.
I saw it. But again, I think that I was able to see such drastic changes because by that point I had a rapport, a trust with you. And I was just at the point, like, I wanted some things to change, and I could just really go all in and allow myself to go all in the process. And I think that if I had remained skeptical or hesitant, it wouldn't have worked so well or so fast.
Sure. And I remember
my encouragement for people,
right,
allow yourself to fall in, all in.
Yeah. And I remember when we did history taking, it's earlier before we do the bilateral stimulation. And I will note too, Alice's EMDR was done virtually, so it wasn't in person.
Yes.
Yeah, but we did the history taking, and she came to the next session and had her timeline. And I remember Alice saying, "Oh my word, are we going to have to do EMDR over all of these different events that have happened in my life?" And so I think, and that's a normal thing to think too, and a little scary. And another myth that we talked about in another podcast was how some people think you have to like relive every one of those experiences to process it, right? But for you, I remember that being a thought of yours. I don't know if it was a concern, but it was kind of like, oh, that's kind of overwhelming to consider. We may have to go through all of these. But we didn't. We did that first one, and then what happened?
Well, it was just really interesting to me, and I something else, just kind of as a very analytical person, as a physician, also kind of was like, oh, what's this going to do to my brain or my mind?
Yes.
And all I can tell you is that it's just going to improve it, its function. It was just remarkable to me how processing this one event unbound so many others.
Yes.
And I couldn't even tell you necessarily how they are connected. I couldn't have predicted what would have happened or that would have happened. I mean, obviously I didn't know, but even now that's still very remarkable to me. And then just, it was almost like over that next week, I don't know of a better way to describe it than just like, I was able to just like release these things that I didn't even know I had really, I would say probably repressed in my brain. And I began to just feel so light. And to really, I don't think I was, I know I was never hopeless, but more hope, more joy just kind of follows as you release these things. And EMDR was just kind of like the lock to the door.
I love that.
I know. I really have to tell you that I'm very moved by what you're saying.
Yeah.
And everything, because about how the brain changes and how your mood and your spirit and everything, and that it happened so quickly. And I never promise anything. You know,
Right.
This is something we know, but we have no idea really how long it's going to take or what's going to happen. Even though we are, I mean, I would call myself, I've mastered EMDR. I still can't tell you exactly the direction you're going to go in, but to have it have been so profound for you makes me want to cry.
I know.
You know.
Well, and you said, I don't know what happened in my brain, but like, and I don't either know the technical words for it, but it's just, it's healing your brain, you know, and it's helping you develop healthier neural pathways in your brain. And then from that, I know from your story, you're able to make decisions and set boundaries and do things from this healthier place. And so it just changes so many things after doing the EMDR that are healthier for you.
100%. It changes the way that I make decisions. It changes my lens for processing my world.
Wow.
And you know, we've done EMDR several times, and like I want to continue to do it. You know, somebody recently said emergency medicine gives you a professional graveyard, and so like it's amazing how much does process at one time, but I think I have a lot there that I want to work on because I believe in how this has changed me mentally, spiritually, and physically. And you know, the body keeps score. It's like the Bible of trauma, I guess. And I've not gone all the way to the end of that book yet, but I remember reading through that and learning about how the body does keep score, and wondering why I never learned about this in medical school. Because, you know, there were times when I definitely saw things that I wondered, and it's so profound to me, the ways that we now know through science that our experiences change our body and create disease, illness.
Yes.
And I can tell you that as I've gone through this process, my body feels healthier.
Wow. That's wonderful.
Well, and you even shared too about and we could bring that up again too. The research shows there's 50 diseases, right, that are impacted by stress and trauma, unresolved.
And we know that stress impacts your genetic expression.
Yes, that's
And
exactly.
It hurts your DNA.
Yes, and it starts to unravel the telomere or telomeres. Yeah, either one. You know, actually.
Yeah.
So right.
Alice is a deep researcher.
Oh,
and so
that's really cool.
She often will say, "I want to go to school. I'm coming to the school of Dr. Deb. You know, what do you have for me today?" And I'm like, "Oh my goodness!"
So great.
But she will dive deep, and you know, started with the body keeps the score and some other things, and doing a little research before we did EMDR, but. And part of it too, since she's a DO, and how it's all interconnected. And she mentioned like spiritually and mentally and physically and relationally, and socially. You know how it changes, you know, all of that. But we're all just this one, and it's all connected.
Yes.
And the first event we did with her was a childhood. Okay. You know, went back to childhood. And, you know, it was, what event would you like to do first? And that's where she chose. But she had several others from childhood that we haven't needed to do.
Wow.
Because by addressing that one, it changed perceptions and feelings and thoughts and everything related to those and insights. And I think I still remember some of the insights that came from those EMDR sessions.
It's really beautiful. And I just want to mention this because Shapiro really believed that what happens to us in the past is the foundation for how our brains continue to develop and how we feel and what choices we make and all of those things based on, information that comes from the past. And so it's really heartening to hear, one, that you worked on something from childhood that dramatically even changed something in the present.
Yes.
It's and I think about how that kind of works its way into Enneagram, right? But I think it has to do with how our subconscious is formed and all of those things, and kind of what comes underneath our behavior and drives our behavior. And those things do come from, our perceptions and experiences as children. And it really changed the way I was able to see things. But I think one of the hesitations and things that I heard people express, and some I had myself, it's like, can we just move on? Like, just move on, right?
Yeah, we hear that.
Yeah.
But it's, I think there's fear about what would it look like to go back and sit in that, or process that, and that comes, at my age, I've lived a lot of life. There's been a lot of things along the way. But it really, there was a brief period of anger. I'm not going to lie about that. I think that's something you need to walk through to heal. But it has given me more compassion, acceptance, and forgiveness, which is spiritually healing. And that's been one of the biggest fruits that came from that. And so I just think that that's something, I don't know if you've heard that before, if that's common with EMDR, but there just becomes like a neutrality. And I could have never imagined the neutrality around certain things that I processed in EMDR. But, before I couldn't have even probably shared or gotten the words out. And, now I have talked about them with people close to me in my life. And, it's not that I'm numb, but I'm able to talk about it without emotionally breaking down about it. And it just is something that happened, and it's okay. And I'm okay. And that's what my brain tells me now. You're okay.
And it makes life, well, it's a different way of living life. And I always talk about in my teaching is that it allows you to be doing the things you are supposed to be doing here, right? And you get to show up the way you want to be and show up in this world and life, instead of being triggered by this old things that are telling you stuff that really isn't true, so it is, it's just let you be, feel, think, do what you want to be doing, and who you genuinely are.
Yes. I feel like I'm the greatest essence of who I was created to be now at this place in my life. And it's, I could never say, which is the way we're raised as women and all these societal expressions, but to say, I love me. I listened to that song by Meghan Trainor, I love me. I do. That's all about self-love. And it's I'm in a honeymoon phase with me, and not in a narcissistic way, but a way that I finally get to embrace and love myself and live the essence of my created being. It's a beautiful place to be. Nothing that I could have ever imagined. I didn't know what I was missing, but it's a wholeness of life lived now.
Yeah, amazing,
isn't it? I
Yes.
know. And one of the things I love about your executive coaching is that you're coming from a trauma-informed place, you know,
I'll say.
and that's going to be such an asset for your clientele, that, you know, because I think so often leaders, especially, it's like, don't allow yourself to be, or it's not only not to look vulnerable or weak, but not to feel, you know, vulnerable, weak. Sometimes we feel it, but we just don't ever show it. But I feel like they're given this message, physicians, attorneys, those, and, you know, executives, you know, like, just not only don't feel it, but it doesn't exist in your world. Like, you know,
Do show it.
No.
right.
Don't be weak.
And the truth is, like, it's there. Like Alice is a testament to this. Like, let's call it what it is. Let's address it. Let's deal with it. And then from that place, you get to be your best self. You know.
Exactly. And better at doing whatever it is you're doing.
Right.
Right.
Right. Yeah.
Yes. And it's, I love the whole, like, present living has kind of been like something I've been sitting with. I'm just gonna, I know we're talking about EMDR, but one of the things I'll be using in my coaching practice is the Enneagram. And I just really love it for a model of understanding, some self-awareness of who you are. And EMDR was able to lead me to a place of having more self-awareness, understanding. But, you know, just as I develop compassion for people in different circumstances, you develop a compassion for yourself, and you cannot grow without that compassion. You know, nobody grows from shame, which I think is what we're programmed to do. I feel like women and men do have a little bit of a different lived experience in our society.
I agree.
So I'm speaking from, you know, being a woman, but like even back to, like, as a woman, you know, be meek, be humble, you're not allowed to love yourself, that kind of thing. I think girls and boys get different messages, right? But this not only bursts compassion for others, and forgiveness for others, it gives you that for yourself. And it's such a great foundational stepping stone to self-growth and to present living. And around this time, I have a friend who, Dr. Ellen Cook, has a website and does a lot with mindfulness and meditation. She started doing it as a radiation oncologist for cancer patients, but I just kind of followed along and started doing these mindful exercises because I couldn't imagine sitting still and meditating. That seemed like that would be a difficult experience for me. But in these mindful walks, the things that come to you when you are present living and the things that you notice when you're being intentional about that are just, it's a different life. Be able to live in your present.
Well, thank you so much. I love this just conversation. I think it's going to really help, like, decrease anxiety among people who are interested or just even just curious about EMDR.
I agree. I very much agree.
And I'm so thankful that you asked me to be here, because as I walked through this, I actually told Deb, I'm like, people need this experience. It's life-changing. And I understand the hesitation.
You're right.
What is this? But it's just, my advice is to go to somebody you feel comfortable with, and develop that rapport, and then just allow yourself to, the best way I can think of it is free falling, just out of the airplane, and know your parachute's going to come up.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Thank you, Dr. Alice Harrell.
Thank you.
Dr. Christie Sprouse. And I'm Dr. Deb. So we will see you in the next episode. Hope you enjoyed that. If this content has been helpful to you, I'd appreciate it if you would please rate the podcast, post it, and share it on social media. And also post a review. If you'd like to get in contact with me, my phone is 479-561-7600, or email Dr. Deborah at anchoredhopecounseling.net or Dr. Deborah at drdebfordoctors.com. Our website at www.anchoredhopecounseling.net has some useful information, and you can also reach out to me through the website. Remember, you are enough just the way you are, and you are loved.